There's Hello, good morning. Trigger warning. So there's this concept in the disabled community that doesn't get talked about as much. And I used to talk about my disability journey to keep family updated on Facebook because I didn't want to talk to them because they always wanted to give me too much positive toxic positivity, and it was overwhelming for me because I needed to be real with what was happening, or I was going to kill myself. And I know that, they're like, well, that's why you needed the positivity in your life. No, I needed reality in my life. I needed acceptance of what my limitations were. And so when I had my old social media, you can see the shifts in my social media presence between my social media that's for family and the one that I solely use when I started my business and my journey. And you can read more about that at steelsweb.store. And so basically I started to only talk about how I alchemized that and how I put myself into remission through the alchemization of my journey, right? Because I had kidney disease, and after 4 years of chemotherapies, they couldn't put it into remission, and I chose to stop treatments when they suggested a venous chemotherapy, and my veins were already collapsing. I was like, no, no more, no more. I'm good. I'm good. And after 2 or 3 years of very strict lifestyle changes and diet changes, I was declared in remission. Mind you, not because my kidneys stopped doing what they do, but because I was eating enough so that me having the disease didn't put me into acute renal failure every time I was low on protein. And I go through bouts of losing weight really really fast for no goddamn reason often, and I've had struggle with malnutrition before. I've also had struggle with my body going through metabolic acidosis, which is extremely painful. And so I can feel when I'm not drinking enough water. Like I can actually feel it in a very visceral, physical way where my joints hurt and the body hurts and everything. So I know when I'm getting dehydrated. So to be told, hey, drinking more than 1 gallon of water a day is too much really bothers me because obviously these doctors don't understand our conditions. They don't know how to help us, but they are still the ones who dictate what assistance we get from society and what assistance we get from our medical insurance and what we qualify for. So anywho, beside the point. In the disabled community, a lot of times I've been called ableist, and I do have a lot of internalized ableism. I do, because I keep pushing forward despite every single thing that should knock me down. I live with chronic migraines and headaches. I shouldn't be driving, but I have no choice because no matter how much I ask for help, I'm not given that assistance. So I try to keep my driving to a very minimal because I have no way of treating my pain. And that's just one of the many pains. But the migraines themselves exacerbate other conditions, and other conditions exacerbate my migraines. For instance, I've always had sensory sensitivity since I was a little girl. Loud sounds, yelling, too much laughter, if I'm having too much fun. It's not just because of negative stuff, it's about positive stuff too. And so you kick on the trauma onto that, and then you have a very weird nervous system. So, and I'm not saying weird as in wrong or anything like that. For those of you, oh, you can't talk to your body like that, it's weird. It's weird, WYRD, different than other people. It's unique. If you don't know the actual definition of what weird is, that's on you. That's not my problem. But weird in itself, the word is not a negative word. You're making it into a negative word. I'm not making it into a negative word. It's weird. I am trying to understand my body, and I call it weird, and it gives me signs and signals on how to do things because it is different than others. And oftentimes I'm given advice that is partially helpful or not helpful at all. Like right now, I am so swollen because of my histamine, because of how stressed I am. But this isn't, doctors are all like, well, you look normal. Yeah, cool, dude. Shut the fuck up. Like, when your appearance is what dictates whether you're taken seriously or not, it really fucking boggles the mind, because I used to love to be in dresses all the time and do my makeup and everything. I can't wear makeup anymore because of the reactions I have to makeup. And even buying mineral makeup, I learned to be very conscious about the makeup and learning about where everything comes from, and only buying, very natural makeup. Even had hand made grounded different types of eyeshadows that I made for myself, and so on and so forth, of rose petal and bougainvillea and things like that. But beside the point, I'm still having reactions. So there's a lot of things that are incredibly frustrating when it comes to dealing with these things. So was only talking about the alchemization. So people thought that I wasn't sick, that I was pretending to be sick, or vice versa. The people who know that I'm sick think that I was pretending to be well. Remission does not mean healed. That's what you guys, and healed in the sense of the healing community, because every time people see me with my weird leg, oh, if sister, if you do our ancient medicines and blah 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 blah, you can heal that problem with your leg and your hip. My leg is slightly shorter than the other one, and my left side is much weaker than my right side because of the migraines that aren't being treated. So shut the fuck up, because it has nothing to do with me not doing my healing journey. Like, y'all need to stop with that shit, expecting a healed version of a person to look like what you expect it to look like. I've had this issue with my legs since I was a little girl. Like, the stories that I get made fun of the most, like the airport story when my cousin was making fun of me because my shoes were too big, and he said that that's why I was crying, and the blisters and blah blah blah. I got the blisters because my mom told me, "Hey, you'll grow into them during the summer." And I said okay, because I really wanted those shoes. So now that there was consequences, my mom says, "Well, we got the shoes because you really wanted the shoes." So she doesn't take responsibility. So now there's a psychological aspect, and people try to make it about the psychological aspect. No, you motherfuckers were always making fun of me because I couldn't keep up with y'all. Because my leg was always weaker than my left side has always been weaker than my right side since I was a little girl, and no one fucking listens. Beside the point, the dragging of my leg, the wife of that same cousin used to hit me for dragging my leg. ¿Qué no puedes levantar la pinche pata? His sister used to hit me for dragging my leg. My mother used to get frustrated with me for dragging my leg. And the list goes on. So, all of these things are things that I can either dwell on or I can create art out of. Because I'm not believed by the medical industry, or I am believed, but there's not much that they can do. And what they can do is not helpful for me to get back my life the way I had it, with activity out in the world the way I had it before, because I can't tolerate too much stimulation anymore. So I do as much as I can. I invest. I get excited about investing in my new walker that's all terrain. I'm going to actually hike this summer, because last summer I didn't get to enjoy hiking because of how hurt I got physically from the interaction with my niece, that I spent the entire summer and fall correcting the pain in my hip. So really, and losing muscle because of it. Because of how much pain I was, less activity led to me losing more muscle that I had worked incredibly hard to gain. Because I do that. Those are the things that are important to me. Those are the things I can focus on. I can't focus on whether or not I'm disabled enough to be considered a disabled artist. I can't focus on whether my art can make me money. The art is keeping me alive. I can't focus on whether or not I'm spending too much time alone or not, because too much stimulation leads to meltdowns and burnouts, to the point where I can't get out of bed from the physical pain. And it's not depression. My crying right now, it's not depression. It's frustration of having to over explain myself. We don't owe you our medical history. We share it so that you guys can stop comparing one person to another, so that you can see that sometimes chronic illness is not visible. My migraines are not visible. The the impairments that they're causing for me to see or not see, they're not visible in a way that a eye doctor can easily diagnose. It's been going on for over 10 years. And all I keep getting told recently is like, oh, it's because it's complex migraine. It's like, cool. What do I do for that? Well, if you feel like you need to get treated, and it's like, it's not just if I feel like I need to get treated. My quality of life is impaired. And you're telling me that there's no options. And I learned to be happy with that through the alchemy of my art. That's not the sadness I feel or the frustrations I feel. I get frustrated when housing navigators act like I'm not doing enough. When disability markets deny me because I'm not disabled enough. I'm not visibly disabled. When they tell me only certain disabilities for these certain, and it's cool, dude, yeah. But don't call it all inclusive. It's not all inclusive. So not all should apply. Say it's for these certain disabilities. My neurodivergence is still undiagnosed because despite requesting and requesting and requesting the testing, I'm still waiting. They keep referring me and denying me. And that's just for my affirmations. And so people can stop judging sensory meltdowns as anxiety or depression, because they're neither. My meltdowns embarrass me, but they're not anxiety or depression. Usually it literally is just that the annoying sound that the light makes got overwhelming. The sun was shining too bright, things like that just like my skin burns, or all of a sudden the temperature changes in such a way that it makes me intolerant to the heat or cold. I start shivering. That's painful. See, we go full circle to the things that aren't being treated or diagnosed. So, as a disabled artist, I see a lot of you come on here and talk about judge each other, cancel each other out, things like that, because you don't believe a person's story based on what they've shared. We don't owe you our entire medical history. But I have a very long and arduous, I can't pronounce the word today, very long and difficult journey with my medical history since I was a little girl. My first migraine when I was about 6 years old. And I was alone with my brother trying to help me with that. Okay, so you can just imagine how that was. Later on, I remember when we were moving out from my great grandma's house, we were helping them move. We were playing and I overheated, which triggered a migraine and a sensory overload. And my mom's like, well, this just happens to her. So obviously it happened to me often. It happened to me often, but it was not diagnosed in childhood. And we went to our checkups and everything like that. And my mom would take us to a doctor in TJ that would say that he would rehydrate me and he would say everything was normal. I get why she took us to the doctor in TJ. Doctors over here are very dismissive and so on and so forth. She didn't want with the frustration, but not having all of that affected my journey as an adult. But also having it affects your journey as an adult. And that's what I mean. People think that I'm blaming my mom for that. I'm not. I'm stating a fact. I'm stating a fact. This is how it is. Not having those things affected it. But now the doctors have all of these records that they're ignoring and putting me through the same fucking bullshit. And then calling me the problem. And it's like, cool, okay, I'm the problem then. I'm the problem. I'm the one who doesn't want to do all this shit. So then just leave me where I'm at. Because you have not been able, you offer me solutions for problems I don't have, or you offer me solutions that I've already tried. I'm not going to let you give me. And yes, I understand. Medication for depression can often help with a lot of these nervous system disorders. I get that. I tried the depression medication. However, your lack of being able to differentiate what it was prescribed for dictates how other doctors treat us. It dictates. And when it doesn't actually work, when the solution causes more problems, because for me, it caused a lot of stomach problems, but it also caused a lot of mental problems I didn't have. Without the medications, I don't have the mental conditions that were being triggered by medications. And it's like, okay, so the solution is not a solution because I'm not depressed. You keep viewing meltdowns, and I'm going off topic altogether in this rant at this point. However, we go through this and we're already exhausted from going through all of that with our doctors, that now you guys are trying to force us to go through that through society, because society often feels like we owe them something. Like when the church was feeding us at the other lot, they believe I owe them ultimate gratitude for that. One, most of the time it was food I couldn't eat, but two, I would have one elder lady 2 or 3 times said things to me where I was just like, no. But, like, oh, you're too young to be struggling with these things. I get that. But I was born with a lot of these struggles. And I normalized it because society expected me to overcome these difficulties. And when I did overcome them and was successful, then society still said it's not good enough. I was already exhausted and burned out from doing what was asked of me, and it's not good enough to even have a living wage. So really take that into perspective, because that's why we turn to art. That's why when therapists could no longer help me, because they understand they can't change the fucking system. And no diagnosis in the world is going to change the current bureaucratical system that we're living. No amount of therapy is going to change that. So eventually we ended up at art therapy being the most successful and long lasting with me since I was a child. So they asked me what used to work when I was younger. That's what it was. And for a while I had art therapy that was covered by my insurance. It's no longer covered. I had garden therapy that was covered by my insurance. When I moved and it wasn't offered in Riverside County, I found a way to supplement that by volunteering places, because that's what worked for me. But you guys want me to go through the entire system, and I'm doing it. But you expect to have a different result when you still haven't treated or diagnosed the issues that are still going on. Because you can't treat my migraines with what you want to treat them until you have me housed in a safe place. Because a passed out person in their car is not a safe person. A person who gets absent-minded by migraine medication is not safe living in their car. You're putting me at risk of being harmed by others or harming others by driving with those medications. You're not doing a service. But then if we just look at the migraines alone, that's enough to see that they don't actually want to house us. Because they say, well, our programs require you to have a certain level of income. Okay, cool. But that would still take my entire income. And I don't have it. Oh, but you can't work 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, okay. I've tried to find a job that you consider working 3 or 4 hours that I can do, but you still want me to do jobs that exacerbate conditions that aren't being treated, that can't be treated until I'm housed. But I can't get housed until I can work a certain amount of hours. So we keep going through this stupid ass circle, and you're stressing me out when I want to focus on my goddamn art. Fuck you people. You guys are focusing on the wrong things because you want to control how we do and what we do. And that happens in artist community. That's what I'm saying. We have a lot of internalized ableism, both in artist communities, but in every single community that I've been a part of. Because I've been blessed enough that for every single one of my conditions, when I'm crying about it and I pray for it, Creator sends me a group, a support group that I can join. However, in a lot of the support groups, you're often going for one condition or another. It's very, very difficult to find a person who has one or two of your same conditions. It's even harder to find somebody who has three, four, or five of your same conditions that match up perfectly. And even then, your symptoms may differ. So finding support is very difficult, but also finding unity in a world that is constantly, and I've shown the parallels, and I go off tangent and people think that I'm unhealed and I have a bunch of trauma because I go off tangent, but I go off tangent because I'm showing you that in all of those parallel lines, y'all are doing the same exact goddamn thing. And we're not getting anywhere because I could have kept working in my family's company, whether I wanted to work with family or not, if the migraines wouldn't have gotten as severe as they did. Because at least that guaranteed my housing. But yes, there was a lot of abuse both at the job and at home that wasn't being recognized. Why? Because my conditions aren't being recognized. So if I don't have a medical piece of paper to tell them and put it in their face, like, you cannot treat me like this, or a way to force these people to go and learn how to take care of someone with these conditions, you're constantly being judged and you're constantly being pushed past your physical limitations, causing more burnouts. My mom is learning how to pace, but at the time she could not know how to pace. Regardless, being in the screen so many hours made my eyes hurt because of the amount of focus it requires to be on the screen, which made migraines. And everyone tries to tell me that, oh, well, you're on social media all the time or you're watching TV. That's not the same requirements of focus that it requires to do a person's income tax. It's not the level of focus that it takes to run multiple programs at once. It's not the level of focus that you need to be able to input people's information without boggling it up when you have dyslexia and you're flipping the words and numbers around. You make a lot of mistakes. By the time I was making mistakes on people's taxes, I had already told my mother and the other person I was working with that I couldn't do it anymore, and they both pushed me past my limitation. That left trauma, yes, but that's not the reason I don't return to working to the office. I don't return to working to an office, even as a secretary, because it requires me to relearn programs, and I don't have the capacity to relearn those programs because I need to be in front of the computer for several hours. No one can focus past the migraine. Like last night, the migraine got so bad, I closed my eyes like at 5. No. It was probably like 7, and did not open them till 4 in the morning because of how much they hurt. Because of how much they hurt. And I had to just, because I had already tried everything I have that is CBD related and THC related to try to stop this migraine. And I can take Excedrin 1 or 2 or 3 days in a row. I think 3 days is the maximum because I'm not supposed to take NSAIDs because they start affecting my kidneys. But even that one dose of Excedrin oftentimes can lead to painful urination for me because I'm not supposed to be taking NSAIDs. So I just let it happen, and I that's how I treated my migraine. You have no treatment for it. That's what I'm saying. You doctors have no treatment that won't leave me more disabled than I already am. Because not any treatment I take will knock me out. Not taking any treatment will knock me out, but at least I'm still alert enough that if people are talking outside or if somebody comes near the car, I can still get up and fuck another motherfucker up for waking me up when I have such a bad migraine. I can still do that. But with your medications, I can't. So, like I said, we can keep going in cycles, but if we keep creating spaces and places that are like this, we're continuing the same trauma. I just gave you a bunch of different examples of how that trauma like shows itself in different circumstances, but I've also discussed the ableism that exists within artist communities, and we need to stop this because for some of us, we never wanted to profit off our art. That's a bonus if it does happen. Now that it's a need, we don't want our art to be contingent on whether or not it's making money for us to be able to still get the benefit of therapy from it. You guys are taking away the benefit of therapy for some of us by trying to force us to monetize in ways that we don't monetize because it would require a level of focus that we don't have. We circle back to the chronic illnesses. Yes, we it's not that we make our entire life about our chronic illness. It's that we literally have to schedule everything that we do around the doctor's appointments for the maintenance of those chronic illnesses, or we have to schedule everything around the maintenance that we have created, the systems that we have created when doctors could not find ways to help us. But we find a way to live, and somehow that's what dictates what y'all be talking about, and not the beautiful art that we're making, not the fact that we're acceptant of what our situation. Like, that doesn't make me depressed. Being homeless does not make me depressed. This is just how it is. And when people try to convince me, oh, well, it doesn't need to be that way, it's like, okay, but the stress that it causes me to try to change that doesn't help my chronic conditions. I need to be in acceptance. And when other people try to make it about my mental health, it really pisses me off. It's one of those, when they try to make it about my upbringing is not what's crippling me at this point. Not having the resources to help these conditions is what's crippling me at this point. Because without proper living space, a person with my conditions cannot take care of themselves. Joints are always going to be inflamed from sleeping in the conditions that I'm sleeping in. Cool. Migraines are never going to get better because this is about as dark as I can get it. Well, this has a little light. I can cover that up right now, but this is as dark as I can get the car during the day. And I've added layers. I would have to put like a car cover over the car to actually have a blackout the way that I need it. I had modified multiple rooms in my mom's house so that I could be able to do things through my migraines, to still create art while I'm having a migraine, because there's no pain relief. So distraction at that point is the only helpful thing when you can't sleep, because sometimes laying down makes the headache worse. Sometimes standing up makes the headache worse. It's not just a headache. Migraine is not just a headache. And I'm using that because that's the one that's affecting me the most the last couple days. But that's just from the added stress of signing up for an art show. And that's what I try to explain to my doctor. And he's like, well, so you don't, it's a choice that you don't want to go into these work programs. And it's like, you don't get it. These work programs start to tell me that I'm not putting in the work because I'll start crying, or I have meltdowns and stuff like that. And I'm asking for accommodations, and they'll be like, well, like, it's because you're not doing your inner child work. Like, that's what the therapist, he tried to say that it was about my political views and stuff like that. And it's still ruminating in me, because it's like, no, dude, like, when I go into these work programs, like when they call me about it and I ask them about these questions, I'm like, are you going to consider these things? And they tell me, like, what considerations do you expect me to have? Like, I don't know what it's going to be. Sensory can be different. I don't know in what circumstances, because you're not telling me what it is that you're going to put me through. And you're also not being specific in the questions that you're asking me if you're trying to decipher where you need to put me. However, I'm using this as an example. Signing up for this art show, I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to cry about it. I'm going to be crying all fucking week because my cortisol and adrenaline is too high right now. I can feel it because it's not letting me sleep very well, which is triggering more migraines. And I'm going to have to live through it if I really want to go through this art show. And because I look forward to displaying my art now, I don't want to have to do that, but I do look forward to displaying it because I love the reactions I get from people. That's what they don't understand. They're like, well, why can you push through for that, but not for a job? I can definitely push through for a job. The problem is that I've passed out at the IRS and they've had to call the ambulances. My legs have given out in front of the office and I had to call the ambulance. I injured myself as a caregiver and I couldn't work for several years. I did farmers markets, and the level of harassment that I was getting sometimes was stressing me out to the point where I was having meltdowns at these places. And then they stop inviting you to their markets, even though they're all inclusive, until you have a sensory meltdown, right? So then they're like, well, certain things aren't going to be accommodated. It's like, okay, cool. Then put that in writing that you're not going to accommodate, because I'll still do it. I'll still go to the market and have the meltdown. I'll still show up for the caregiving thing. But sometimes I have meltdowns. Sometimes I'm so confused that I'm not understanding instructions. I'm getting injured. I'm doing things automatically. I shouldn't have been catching that patient. We're trained to let them fall. There was no reason I should have been reaching out the way that I did and injuring myself. But because you disassociate from the pain so much, and by then I was already limping to the point where by the time I got off my shifts, as soon as I would get in the car, I would have to take a 2 or 3 hour nap because my fucking legs were so numb I couldn't walk anymore. I couldn't press on the pedal safely without causing accidents. So no, like I can talk this shit in circles, but when we create spaces, we have to take all of these things into consideration, because inclusivity is an understanding that we don't understand the human capacity or body. And trying to shut a person's emotions down because they make you feel uncomfortable does not mean that they can't get the fucking job done. I still used to wash my dishes, but my mom's like, you're going to wash them with your tears first, because she didn't understand that standing in that position was so fucking painful, or I would pass out, until I finally passed out in front of her one Thanksgiving. And then she started telling me, well, sit down in el banquito and do it like I do. But leaning over the sink like that caused my shoulders and back to hurt so much that I'd get nauseous from the neck and shoulder pain, and it would trigger migraines. I'm not crying because you told me to wash the dishes. I'm crying because of the physical pain I'm in while doing it, but I'm still doing it. And then you're getting mad at me and taking things out of my hands because you think that I'm just being dramatic, and I'm crying because I didn't want to wash dishes. And this is what I mean. Like this has been going on since I was a child. So I understand that trauma around it, but that's not what's causing my pain. It's exacerbating the pain that was already there, but it's not causing the pain. It's not the causation. And doctors use this all the time to try to get you to take medicines like gabapentin. Like, okay, yes, some people have this reaction, but it's not necessarily the causation. Cool. If you can use that argument, then why can't you understand that that's also true for some of the conditions that some of us have been living with our entire lives, that have been misdiagnosed and re-diagnosed as new information arises and new diagnostic criteria arises? Why can't y'all accept the changing tides so that you can actually find employment that we could work? Because I love working in the garden, but I can't work at the level that is productivity driven. But I can maintain a garden. I've demonstrated that. But because I also create art, people don't want to live with somebody who always has stuff around creating art. So this is what I mean. And you guys are making all of these expensive solutions when you could just offer us a place to live. If you don't want to take care of us, for many of us, we kind of raw dog it until we either injure ourselves and need to be hospitalized or until we die. So just leave us in it. Oh, but it's so depressing and they're traumatized and they have agoraphobia. No, motherfucker, we're in pain. That's not being treated. And that possibly can't be treated because I don't want to go on the amount of medications I was on to try to treat my pain. It didn't work and I didn't get to have a life when I was on all those medications. Got to a point where I couldn't get out of bed. And as an artist, I don't appreciate that. But I would work in the garden. If I felt too tired and I felt like I was going to pass out, I always had areas where I could just pass out or take a nap safely without passing out. The way when I first started, where they couldn't figure out what was going on, and I just pass out and I'd be in the soil, and people kept blaming it on the medications I was on. Cool, I got off all the medications. You still have no answers and no solutions. It doesn't seem to me like doctors know what causes POTS, because essentially it seems like for different people it's caused by different things. And they're trying to blame a lot of it on trauma, but it's not a trauma response. It's already a nervous system that was different, and it's a nervous system that people tried to force to fit the mold that every other nervous system is. And because of that, now we have additional shit onto that. But I've been passing out since I was a little girl because of the heat and shivering to the point of my fucking toes and feet contorting in ways that they shouldn't contort since I was a little girl, and y'all can't figure it out. You don't know. You have no idea. So yeah, I get why my family was frustrated, but that did not give them the right to treat me the way they do. I get why my doctors are frustrated, but that does not give you the right to put it on my body, which I am working really hard to do. And it does not give you the right to say that I'm not doing the work just because I start crying because you want to practice CBT, not understanding that CBT is not going to work if you're not willing to admit the systems that are creating these problems. Fix housing, fix a lot of the triggers that cause my flare ups. That should be a medical treatment in itself. Or keep spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical treatments that could be prevented if maintenance, housing, proper nutrition were provided. And exercise, that's the other hard one. But I'm finding solutions to that. So that's why I'm not complaining about that. My new physical therapist is great. But anyways, point is housing, nutrition. You want a medical plan for what my conditions are? Housing, nutrition. Very simple. Very, very simple. As an artist, you guys want us to have a profession? Okay. You can do something simple for artists. You can offer them a program where they have a studio and they can work at their studio and display at their studio. Kind of like the outlets or the thing, like, and it can be like an artist hub. I've seen some of them. They're just not accessible to everybody. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you could easily, if they could be government run because you want us all to have employment instead of bringing all this shit from China and Taiwan and stuff like that. You could be giving artists these spaces so that they could be selling their art. Because a lot of us make a lot of trinkets. A lot of people make resin art. They could be selling all of those things that these stores are selling, and it can all be American made. But you don't want that because that does not help capitalism. However, it could help, and it could really lower the amount of pain medication, physical therapy, and mental health therapy that some artists have, because some of us, it literally is just access to housing and access to space to create our art, and we still find ways to create it. Look at my studio. Isn't it great? Look at my medicine while I'm working. Unfortunately, in people's houses, I can't work and use my medicine. That's There you go. There is my studio. And I don't drive. I park somewhere where I'm going to be there all day, and I won't have to drive while I'm on my medicine because doctors can't find solutions, and I can't keep passing out from the pain. Because passing out from the pain is terrifying. It is terrifying. If you've never passed out from pain, it almost feels like your heart stops. You gasp for air and it feels like your heart stops. And then you are unaware if you're going to wake up or not. That's what passing out from pain feels like in a mental, logical way when you think about how it feels. Because how it feels, that's not the only thing that's going on in the body, but it sets off alarms. And those are things you guys can't see. So in ableist communities, that's what's fucked up. And if we talk only about the good and we try to be positive, then people don't think we're sick enough. If we talk about our journey, then people think that we're trying to monetize on our illnesses. If we share ourselves in a support capacity to support others going through the same journey so that they know that they're not the only ones out there and share the same frustrations of how there is not support out there, then we're making it political. Do you see where I'm going with this? We get fucked either way. So there's a lot of concepts here that I gave you guys, and I know that I go through multiple tracks of thinking, but they all come together. You just have to be willing to listen. And if you really want solutions, you also need to be willing to accept that sometimes there are no solutions to the way society has created things unless we start to dismantle the way society runs things. And while medical treatment is still dictated by people who are not going through those medical conditions, we suffer. And I know you're going to judge me for having my coffee, but I also had 2 cups of water before this. So fuck off. Have a beautiful day. Coffee is good for migraines, whether you want to believe it or not. A little bit. Don't do too much because then you cause other problems. And if you already have gut issues, you don't want to do that. Coffee is preferable, but most mushroom coffees do not break down unless you have access to hot water. And living in your car is not that simple, especially after I broke my little pot. But anyways, have a beautiful day.